So good morning and good afternoon, depending on where everybody is today. My name is Jim McDonald with Torrey Hills Capital. Pleased to be hosting today's call featuring Mainz Biomed, developer of diagnostic solutions for life-threatening conditions, including the company's flagship product is ColoAlert, an accurate, non-invasive, and easy-to-use early detection diagnostic test for colorectal cancer. The company trades in the U.S. On the NASDAQ market under the ticker symbol MYNZ. And joining me today from the company, I've got Guido Baechler, the company's CEO, and Bill Caragol, the company's CFO. Before I turn the call over to Guido and Bill, just want to go through logistics fairly quickly. For those who have been on a call with me in the past, you're familiar with this, but just as a reminder, we encourage and we like our webinars to mimic our in-person meetings, which is better and best when interactive. With that in mind, if you do have questions along the way, please feel free to ask them. No need to wait until the end of the presentation. Best way, of course, to ask a question is use the navigation pane at the bottom of the screen, click on the Q&A or the chat button. One of us will see that and get that presented and answered for you. Please note that if your question does not get answered immediately, it's not that we don't see it or that we're ignoring it. It simply means that we understand it's a good question and it's probably going to come up at some point in the presentation a little bit further along. So we're just going to wait for the normal course of flow to get to that question. Alternatively, we can have a more formal Q&A session at the end of the presentation and actually allow you to speak directly with management. If you want to do that, the best way to do that again is use the navigation pane, click on the raise hand button. We will then be able to unmute your microphone and allow you to speak directly and have back and forth conversation with both Guido and Bill. With that said, keep the questions coming. I will turn the controls over to Guido and Bill. Enjoy the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim, for the nice introduction. Let me bring up the deck. Great. Well, good morning and good afternoon to all of you as well. Very happy to have an hour with all of you, bringing you some more news about Mainz Biomed. I'm Guido Baechler, I'm the CEO. I spent the last a little bit over 30 years in the diagnostic industry, a very large company as well as a very small company. I spent close to 20 years with Roche Diagnostics, which is one of the world's largest and most successful diagnostic companies in Switzerland as well as here in California. I then run two startups in the Bay Area, successful startups, also always developing innovative products that were really, changing diagnostics in a meaningful way. I came across Mainz Biomed about a year ago, and I was very intrigued with the concept of what the German company had developed. This really innovative early colorectal cancer test that is using a decentralized model, which means it can be sold to any laboratories around the world, which is completely different than to, for example, what some of our competitors are doing in the US. I like the concept. It's a very simple, easy collection approach, and ultimately the clinical performance is very solid, meaning we can really pick up colorectal cancer at a very early stage. So I was very excited. I joined the company, and then together with Bill, we took the company public in November, and we made significant progress since then. I want to stop here and allow Bill now to also introduce himself.
Great, thank you, Guido, and it's nice to be here with you all today. My background is I've also got to over 30 years of experience. I started with a traditional finance, accounting type background, spent 8 years roughly with Deloitte & Touche in the Washington, D.C. area, and then began working with early stage, growth stage technology companies. Being in the DC area, it was a lot of security, both Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and other government-related technologies. I relocated down to South Florida about 15 years ago, roughly, to work with a medical device company that was taking a product through FDA 510K and launching it into U.S. markets, and had the opportunity to take that product and a spin-out company and take it public on NASDAQ. So I've had a broad range of experiences with both private and public companies. I've done now had the opportunity to do 3 NASDAQ IPOs as the CFO. And in addition, I currently sit on 2 NASDAQ boards, not in the life science space, one in the EV space and one in the fintech space. That gives me a broad and I think a deeper view of how public companies are run and how to manage exciting technologies and products like we have here at MYNZ Biomed through the public company process and capital markets. And I won't step on it anymore, but rather turn it back over to Guido because he's got an exciting story he's about to tell you.
Thank you, Bill. So let's move through. Again, I do want to repeat what Jim said. Please do interrupt at any time, either in the chat or Q&A. We believe it's better to address the questions as they come as we presenting the specific topics. So past our safe harbor statement, I do like to give you a little bit more deeper insight into MYNZ Biomed. And everything you will hear today is about a company that the main mission is to develop molecular tools that help identify cancer earlier. And many of you had, or know somebody that has had cancer, and in many cases, unfortunately, we lose family, friends, neighbors. And in many cases, it wouldn't really have to be that way because there are tools out there that you can use to detect cancer earlier. And the earlier you detect cancer, in all cases, the survival rate is better. So clearly, this is the focus of MYNZ Biomed. We are about 10 years old already. We have quite a bit of experience in the space, marketing our products in Europe. Mainz is actually a city next to Frankfurt in central Germany. Again, we have diagnostic products that we're selling in Europe. We also have a certified laboratory that we're running out of the Mainz lab as well. Our approach really is to develop effective and easy to use collection devices and tests that can be done at home. You see the picture in the left side where you see those 2 tubes. Those are the collection tubes, and we'll talk about that more. But it's about a very easy, it's easy of use, and many of you have now gone through probably many COVID tests yourself, and you've done most of them at home. And so I think what you can see is where we're moving forward with this company. This product is really creating products that you can collect at home, and then very easily drop in a mailbox and get it to the laboratories and get the results back. So we want to make it very easy. It has to be very easy, and it has to be in your hands in the most effective way. So when we talk about MYNZ Biomed, there's 6 key highlights I would like to remember after this presentation. The first one is that the MYNZ Biomed operates in a very large market, which will have a significant impact. And colorectal cancer is the 2nd most lethal cancer in the US, but also one of the most preventable of the cancers. Again, the survival rate is very early, and I talked about that earlier. It's really important that you pick the cancer up at a very early stage. We are already a revenue generating company. We're not just having a concept of a product. The product that I showed you the picture of is actually currently sold in Europe at CE-IVD market, approved for sale. We have already European customers, and I'll talk about that in a little more. Clearly, we do want to move this product into the US, which just gets us to the next highlight. Really is that the market in the United States is very large. Recent guidelines clearly highlighted that the screening for colorectal cancer should be moved to lower ages, and even more publications coming out now that really clearly highlights that younger and younger individuals actually are starting to get exposed to colorectal cancer. So the market is very, very significant, specifically as the age group moves along. And we'll talk about on the right side, one of our key competitors in the United States is Exact Sciences, that had over $1 billion revenue in 21 and just recently reported even more revenue this year. So clearly this is a growing market, and from a market potential point of view, Cologuard makes it very clear, Exact, that their market cap is actually, the market potential is currently with the revenue they have is less than 5%. So the market is very significant. The product we have is very easy to use and has good performance. We'll talk about that. in the tech as well. So it's very important that, you know, when you develop these kind of molecular products, it's important that you have a very solid clinical performance so that it really makes sense for the patient and the physician to use it. And we're very comfortable with what we have. And again, we talked about the attractive valuation from us compared to, for example, Exact Sciences. But what's also important is we have a very experienced management team that we continue to build out and expand, and we'll talk about that as well. People that have really built companies in the molecular space, in the cancer space, and been very successful. So very excited with what we have, and again, we will continue to give you updates as we move forward. So let me talk just for a few seconds about the market potential. So I mentioned that before, that guidelines are just recently changed, that we should start testing at age 45. That really, you know, currently this is about 37 million people who should be tested in the United States on an annual number. This will go up to 52, you know, over the coming 10 years. Again, as the population ages and more people, you know, younger people starting to be tested, you know, the potential for MYNZ is very significant. Looking at about a 3.7 billion market opportunity, that's just for the United States. But as I mentioned before, we already have products in Europe and expanding into other markets outside of Europe. So the market potential for this single product is very substantial, and it's still needed. If you look at the upper right bullet point, almost 40% of people in the United States between age 50 and 75 have never been screened, right? And those then result into the lower number, the almost 53,000 people who died, you know, in 2021 because of lack of screening. So it's very important that we really move and develop products that are broadly available in the United States and also the rest of the world to really save lives. Let me talk about the product for a minute here. So I mentioned it before. You see the two collection tubes that we have. The test is a combination of a molecular test, a PCR, and I know you're all very familiar these days with PCR because that's the technology that's been used for almost all COVID tests around the world. I personally have been working with PCR for the last 30 years, so very excited to be back to that space as well with the colorectal cancer test. So the test is a combination of the molecular PCR test as well as measuring blood in your stool. It's a very simple, easy to collect stool sample that then can be dropped into the mailbox. The envelope is very small. I'll give you an example here. It's a little hard to see, but it's very easy to collect it and basically drop into a mailbox, and then you get the results back. Sensitivity-wise, we compared this to the FIT test. Clearly, you know, we're missing a lot fewer cases compared to the standard, which is the FIT test in many places, including the United States. You know, it's a non-invasive test, can easily do it at home. The patients that we interviewed in Europe are very happy with it. And it's also developed to be an affordable solution. Some of the current solutions offered specifically in the United States are very expensive, and it's very difficult to get into a larger screening market, you know, with such massive costs. We believe between our performance we have with the test, the decentralized model, how we will commercialize it, as well as the performance, we have a winner at our hands. There's a question.
Yeah, Guido, there is a question on here.
Yeah. How long have you been selling in Europe? What's the cost of test available over the counter? Let me address that in my next slide. That's a very good question, Matt, and I'll address it right away. So let me move to the next slide. This is let me just jump to here. This is about the commercialization, and I think it's very important that we currently sell this product in Europe. Through clinical laboratory partners. So this is like the LabCorps and the Quests of Europe. Basically, these are large laboratories that have large networks of physicians and patients. And we're selling it through those laboratories to those patients. You know, the price it depends on the laboratory, depends on volumes, but we also sell the test online. So it's not over the counter in a pharmacy. We are having discussions with such potential partnerships. But we currently sell it for 150 euro online. So if you're based in Germany, you can order the test for 150 euro. We send your kit home. You send the kit back to us, and we provide the results to you. So that's how it happens in Europe. And we built this model in Europe. We continue to expand it. we recently announced the addition of a very successful and very senior chief commercial officer, who now helps us to not just only expand in the German and European market, but outside of Germany as well. So very excited. You see at the bottom here on the right, you see two names, Sonic Healthcare and Limbach Group. These are some of the larger laboratories in Germany and also across Europe. And some of those laboratories already have adapted our technology and our test, and we're very excited to continue to build this. The European market is really important because it's a model how we will operate in the United States. And here I think it's really important as we talk about what Exact is doing. Exact has a model that is centralized, so all samples have been shipped to one center, and also the marketing and all has to be done by one company. Our approach is completely different. We will then now be able to sell our products post FDA approval to any laboratories in the United States, and then partner with those laboratories to reach large numbers of physicians, and through the physicians, large number of patients. So it is a complete different model that we're approaching, which is much more used by other companies like Roche and Abbott and Siemens. So it is a decentralized, kit model that has been extremely successful, implemented for many years by many other companies. So we're excited to move down that road. And Matt, I hope that answers your question. Let me go back one slide here and talk about the performance. So before I talked about the clinical the kit, how it is, it's a combination of the fit test. And so we're very proud of the performance we have accomplished in our study that we've done with the first generation, where we clearly showed, a significant higher performance than, for example, the fit test. That's the current gold standard, specifically on the sensitivity point of view. We have also launched, and we mentioned that in the press release early this year, we very recently licensed new biomarkers. These are also molecular-based biomarkers, mRNA-based biomarkers that have shown very strong performance, not only for picking up or detecting early stage of colorectal cancer, but also being able to detect advanced adenomas, or really, we call these really precancerous lesions or a curable precancerous lesions. So those are really lesions that, if it's detected early, you can during your colonoscopy, you can remove those lesions, and then the patient actually doesn't even have cancer. So we're moving the game from detecting colorectal cancer to a stage earlier to actually be able to eliminate cancer from even happening in the first place. So we started a study that we announced called Color Future in Europe, where we're basically testing now as well our current DNA with the fit test, as well as our portfolio of acquired mRNA biomarkers. We have specific goals established for us that we want to achieve in sensitivity and specificity for Color Future, which is very important, for the future growth of and adaptation of the test. And we're also in the process of launching our large PMA study in the US, and I'll talk about that in a second. There's one more question. Yeah, so what is it? The question is that what is the specificity and sensitivity of the test? And I think I show you that here. Our current test that we're commercializing, that we have the publication is 85-92%. It's important in Europe, specifically Europe, you must have at least 90% specificity to be adapted as a test. And our test was tuned in that direction. But as I mentioned before, we are working on the next generation that includes the mRNA biomarkers, and that is the test that then we will plan to bring forward to the FDA. So again, it's important that we see this is our first generation test that we have, and we continue to expand the biomarker to really also further improve the performance. Good. So let me talk about the US a little bit. It's very important, as you can imagine. Can we have a product in Europe? It's actually a wonderful opportunity to already have a product in the market, as you can learn from that product, optimize it. And now we are in discussion with the FDA. We announced that as well. We had a really good meeting with them. Actually, we got really good feedback from them on our pre-sub about our study plan. So we're moving forward with that. We also had some initial discussions with CMS, which was very helpful to us. We will start enrolling patients towards the end of this year. That's our goal. And then we plan to submit beginning of 24, and current estimated launch of this product in the US in beginning of 2025. That is the current plan. But what's also important is, as you see at the bottom, we're already having a commercial product that we're actually expanding into the European market and also the rest of the world. And all the learnings we have, they're really showing us that the product actually works effectively well and also help our FDA commercialization. PancAlert is a product that is very important to us. So everything you've heard so far was about ColoAlert, which is focused on colorectal cancer. We started about 2 years ago and product sponsored by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, evaluating now a very similar concept like we have for PancAlert, where we have small stool samples collected. And then instead of running our current DNA markers, we run additional biomarkers with the goal to detect pancreatic cancer at an early stage. There is no screening test available for pancreas cancer. It is one of the most deadly cancers because it's always detected at a very late stage. And here we're very excited to continue to develop that product and ultimately with the goal to bring this into a market in a very similar fashion as we're doing today with ColoAlert. So we're very excited about that, and we expect to provide you update on this product in the near future. So when you look at what we've done since we went public last November, we have made some announcements of the key activities. We've been building a strong leadership team. One of the big moves for us was the licensing of the mRNA. We also done a follow-up financing in January. We initiated now clinical studies in Europe and the US to come. And we continue to add new clients and customers in Europe as we expand the market. So there's a significant activity. We're very proud of what we have accomplished, but we know this is the beginning. We'll continue to do more, and we'll keep you updated as we go along. Next slide gives you a little bit a better picture of the leadership team. So we have, you meet Guido, myself, and Bill today. We have Moritz and Philip. Those two are the co-founders of the original company, and those two guys have a very strong, experience building startups. Moritz on the science side, and Philip on the business side. We are joined by Karen, who is leading our regulatory quality activities. Karen has extensive experience dealing with the FDA, so we're very excited to have her on board. Then we added some strategic advisors, Heiner and former Roche executive, extensive experience across many diseases. Soren Destrup-Nielsen is an MD, former Danaher executive, helping us advising on the clinical strategy. Michele Pedrocci is the former head of business development at Roche Diagnostics, also extensive experience across industry and very important to guide us through some of the strategic discussion we're having. And then also Dr. Rainer Metzger, who came from QIAGEN and our company as well. So we have a very solid team. And then more recently, just this week, we announced our newest addition to the leadership team is Darren Lee, an industry veteran helping us build the commercial strategy. There are two more questions. Is it possible? The first question was, is it possible to screen both pancreatic cancer and colorectal cancer in a single test? The answer should be theoretically yes, because if you collect the stool sample and the way we stabilize in the stool sample, it will work for RNA and DNA. And theoretically, we should be able to, add, on one hand, you have one panel that tests for colorectal cancer, and then another biomarker panel, who then detect pancreatic cancer. The answer is that would be our ideal solution, but we haven't shown it yet. Next question is, how does your test differ to Exact Sciences? Here, I think there's a couple key differentiators. Well, first of all, our current test that we have in Europe is very similar to what Exact is having, except that it's the collection is very simple. The extract, again, the way we're doing it at home, the way you can drop it in the mailbox is very simple. Performance-wise, very similar. Again, collection-wise, we believe our test is significantly simple to collect, significantly simple to ship. It's a decentralized model. We can actually sell it to any laboratories we want, and not just a decentralized model. And again, the other approach is also from an overall cost structure. Our product will be positioned quite different. Is your test a better mousetrap compared to Exact? I think here it's important. I wouldn't necessarily call it a better mousetrap, but it's a clearly differentiated product by enabling more people to get screened, right? It is something that is really clearly, and also maybe one additional point is that as we're additioning the mRNA in the United States for the future product, we also expect our test to have better performance than Exact. Of course, we have to do the study, but based on what we've seen from the data from our partner that will license it, the performance is very significant. Also moving now into the advanced adenomas, the early stage cancer. Okay. So with that, I want to give it over to Bill to talk about the financing.
Well, thank you, Guido. And as you know by now, the name of the company is Mainz Biomed. We are domiciled in the Netherlands with our operations and headquarters in Germany. We are traded on the NASDAQ. Our symbol is MYNZ. And then looking at our capitalization, we have 13.8 million shares, ordinary, outstanding. And on a fully diluted basis, that's 19.2 million. That results in a market cap on any given day in the 200 million neighborhood. And as a result of the capital raises, both in our IPO in November and the follow-on offering in January, we are sitting with a significant amount of cash on our balance sheet to fuel our future growth. And looking at what we raised that capital for, and this will stitch together with all of the important initiatives and milestones that you just heard from Guido, obviously the FDA, as well as European clinical studies, which are launched or being launched presently, continued research and development, both on our flagship product, CoAlert, as well as the exciting PancAlert opportunity that Guido just described to you. When we took the company public, the founding company had been in Germany and had developed the product that is CE marked, and had gotten it approved. So it was for sale, but being a early stage research and development company, had never had the opportunity to invest in sales and marketing. So one of the first things we began, and Guido just highlighted it, one of the capstones, which is bringing on board a great chief commercial officer like Darren Lee, is to really focus our efforts on sales in Germany, but then expanding throughout Europe while we're moving through the important process to enter US markets. So while the historic sales were just starting as we took the company public, we would expect over the course of this year and into next year to begin to be able to deliver on some exciting sales and revenue results, and we'll continue to be communicative on that process as we move through the year and through the quarters. Finally, just on valuation costs, because that's always a difficult question when evaluating a company, a small cap company, and then in particular a company bringing a new product to market. The things that we look at and looked at as we were evaluating the opportunity coming into our IPO is first Exact Science, because of course they've been out there. Their Cologuard product is so well known because of all of the advertising that they've done and the educational process that has come with that, and their market cap, albeit facing some struggles as we all are in today's volatile markets, they're still with a market cap in excess of $10 billion as we sit here today. Their trailing 12 months revenue was in the $1.5 to $2 billion range. Actually, with the most recent quarter reported, closer to $2 billion. And importantly, at a comparable point in their development, at the beginning stages pre-PMA study, they did have a market cap of over $400 million. And very recently, just in November of this year, at about the same time we were going public, Genioscopy did a Series B private venture financing of 105 million. And while the valuation isn't public, given companies similarly situated in a Series B at 100 million plus capital raise, it's reasonable to assume that that probably was based on a valuation in that same neighborhood. So with that, see, there are some questions. Let me see if any of them are pointed towards me. Yes. So, not knowing which order, I'm going to go bottom to top. Insider and institutional ownership. There's 20% of the company that's owned by management and the board. On the institutional side, there is about 15-16% that is owned by German banks that were part of the initial financing of the company. And then to transition that question, the vast majority of the IPO and the follow-on offering was in retail and family office investors. How long does cash take you, and how much money needs to be raised to meet endpoint goals? Let me combine those two together because I think they're the same question. The most significant investment that we'll make over the course of the next 3 years is the investment in our FDA PMA study, because it's going to be over 10,000 patients, and it's going to begin in the second half of this year. Right now, the total cost of that study will be significant, no doubt. However, given the current environment where the costs of running such a study went through the roof, while all of the CROs were so engaged with a lot of COVID-related work, we're seeing that work come back down. So as we move forward over the course of the next few months, we're going to hopefully negotiate a fair and reasonable cost structure in order to execute and operate that study. What we know as we sit here today, before having all of the final answers, is that we've raised enough capital to take us well into 2023, and importantly, past several important milestones related to the mRNA biomarkers, the Colo Future study, as well as certain European commercial objectives. Another question is, what makes up the 6 million shares between basic and fully diluted? Are those options or warrants? What price and duration? So the answer is both. In the public raises, those were both offerings, straight ordinary shares. However, there were warrants issued for the private financings that were done before the IPO. So all private warrants. All of those warrants, which total roughly 3.5 million, are struck at $3, and they have a 3-year life. On the remainder of what makes up that difference is roughly about $2 million stock options, which are priced between, at the low end, the IPO price at $5, and at the high end, prices that are roughly in the $20 range. All of those are out of a shareholder approved plan, and therefore are traditional 10-year stock options, with the standard vesting for employees being a 4-year vesting schedule. Why are not valued in line with others at the same time? Too new, not well known yet? Well, I think that there was a question and a couple answers in there. We believe that over time, we will be fairly valued because we will, A, continue to execute against our strategy. We'll continue to be communicative. And as we progress against some of our major milestones, I think as you can suppose, our business model will begin, and business will begin to attract more significant external large partners. And that always seems to be a demarcation point between, let's say, having a solely retail held stock to being one that begins to have institutional investment. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, execution, but also we recognize the importance as a new company of being as communicative as possible, because we have to get the message out and have more people learn about our company, because we believe that the more that learn, the more will follow us and will join the team over time. How many employees? So between employees and consultants, which we do employ significantly for very important specialized tasks, especially on the regulatory front, we're in the 30 to 35 range, depending on how you measure full-time equivalents. That's up significantly by a dozen since the beginning of the year. And we continue to be hiring and bringing on key team members as we move forward. How much money to be spent on Pankalert in 2022 and 2023? So I hate to be cagey, but I'm going to be a little bit cagey here, because we are at a stage of development where we're currently evaluating the most productive, the optimal research path, while also balancing our research and development objectives related to ColoAlert and the important studies that are ongoing. In addition, you have to remember we are also partially funded and sponsored on that R&D by the German government entity. So what we can say is we are going to increase the level of our investment, and over the course of the next 6 to 9 months, or said differently, by the end of this calendar year, we're going to be able to draw a more definitive line as to what our research and development will program will entail as far as further milestones and progress. And whether or not we disclose what we're going to invest in that, I guess my position would be probably not, for competitive reasons, but we would continue to communicate what our objectives and targets are, and then communicate how we're executing and delivering against those. How will you be targeting?
I can address that question, Bill. So currently in Europe, we're addressing GPs, doctors, and in general public. In the United States, we will do the same, very similar. We also expect to have discussions with HMOs, PPOs, specifically since many of the organizations are only using the FIT test today, and we know they would like to improve their performance as well. So the answer is yes, all of them. Okay, great. So let me go to our final slide, our summary slide. Our plan, clearly, as we outlined to you, is to become the leader in multi-billion-dollar colorectal cancer diagnostic market and beyond. As we just talked about the Pankalert, as well as some other cancers that we're starting to explore. But to start off with, clearly we have a potential blockbuster test with ColoAlert. That's been, again, very successfully commercialized in Europe. And that will then, from our point of view, also reflect the approach we'll do in the US. There's a very significant market potential in the US, which we define as about $3.7 billion. The current valuation holds tremendous upside, as we outlined to you, and Bill explained that before. We're a protected business. We have critical reagents, process and formulation. Everything is protected through trade secrets. It's very important to us that we continue to do this. We have a unique distributed business model and a very experienced team to deliver the business plan. We're very comfortable with that. And last but not least, our most recent, as we just discussed, is the development of a genetic testing plan for pancreatic cancer is really our sixth key point here. So with that, I want to close out. Let me have a couple more minutes if you have more questions for us. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, Guido and Bill, thank you for a great presentation. Just a reminder for those on today's call, if you do have questions, please use the navigation pane at the bottom. Click on the Q&A or the chat button. We can get those questions answered. One thing that questions that I have for you is on the corporate side, are there any analysts that are currently covering you? And if there are or not, do you expect to have any in the near term, short term, long term?
Jim, why don't I take that one? Well, and I'll work backwards. In the long term, absolutely, we expect to have many. In the near term, what Guido and I are doing is we are speaking with many, and we've had many good introductions and many good follow-ups as a result of those introductions. So it is our goal. We know the importance of having quality, external, independent research done on us. And we believe that over the course of the next short period of time, we're hopeful that we will have a couple of analysts who begin publishing on us. As you know from the process, you court them by being very communicative. We always take every meeting we can get, and what is encouraging is that they come back to us. In other words, once they hear the story, they want to learn more, and there's more follow-up. So we obviously continue to remain active and communicative, and based on the feedback that we're hearing from them, we do have positive expectations for the maybe not this quarter, but hopefully soon thereafter.
Yep, terrific. No, appreciate that. And can you maybe just reiterate for investors on today's call what you see as catalysts going forward in the balance of 2022 and then into 2023?
Yeah, I can talk about that. For us, the focus of in the key milestones for us in 2022 clearly is again, we started off the Call of Future study, which will validate these new mRNA biomarkers that we licensed earlier this year to again improve the overall performance and make it an absolute blockbuster test from a performance point of view. Second part is the continued expansion of our commercialization in Europe as we continue to announce some of the new partnerships we're having. And third really is the initiation of our FDA PMA study that I outlined in my timeline, which is really critical for one. And then, as mentioned before, and the fourth point is also the potential further development of painkiller.
Terrific. And then I see a question from Lincoln, some of which may have been covered, but just as a reiteration, expected secondary offering and dilutions, and then part two of that is cash availability and run rate until 2025.
So we did using gross dollars, we did an $11 million IPO in November, and then did a follow-on offering of over $25 million in January. First offering at 5 and second offering at 15. Both of them just ordinary shares, common shares, no bells, no whistles, no warrants. That puts cash, now net cash on our books, which we're about to report on our Form 20F, our annual report as a foreign filer. That will be on file by the due date, which is this coming Monday. And in there, we'll report our current. In the screenshot that you saw in our presentation, I said we had $29 million of cash in the bank, which takes us well into 2023. And importantly, well past several of the large and important milestones that Guido just mentioned related to Colo Future study, which is going to have data related to our mRNA biomarkers, as well as our PMA study that Guido just mentioned, which is so critically important to our success and to the timing of our entry into the U.S. markets.
Fabulous. My next comment is sort of a comment and a question. So as I listen to the presentation, my takeaway in simple forms is, you've got a huge addressable market. You're well-funded. You currently have sales in Europe. You're moving toward FDA approval here in the US. So all of that is super, super positive. What is it? I guess two things. One, is this truly, can you look at this as an execution play, i.e., at some point this is going to become FDA approved, and it's just a matter of time to go through the process? And then part two is, what are your concerns given all of that? It seems like you're on track to do it. So what are you guys worried about?
Yeah, so I can share with you, clearly for us, I think that getting a product through the FDA is well understood. I was part of the biggest diagnostic study ever done with Roche, over 50,000 patients. So I think we have the right team to get this done. I think the core point for us really is to validating the mRNA biomarkers with our DNA markers and fit in our core future study. That's really the most critical point, and see, at what level performance do we actually come in with that. I think that's a very pivotal point for us. Again, we have the current publications from the Canadian study, which clearly highlights what it can be, but it's very important for us that we run our own study. So, waiting those study reports is certainly a very, very important part for us, because it can clearly, and it will move us into another category of company.
Excellent. I don't see any additional questions right now, but we still have some time if there are questions that come up. With that, let me hand out today's keyword. I always try to pick something that's a day of the year. Today happens to be National Superhero Day, so superhero will be our keyword for the day. And then I'll turn it back to Guido and Bill, and what I ask of you is to sort of provide what I call your elevator pitch closing thoughts on the company and what investors should take away from today's meeting.
Yeah, Jim, again, thanks again for your time and for all on the call as well. We really appreciate you spending the last hour with us. We hope we've given you a good overview of the potential of Mainz Biomed. We are a young company, but we have very, very strong leadership within the organization that have built successful companies from the scratch. Paired is with a very successful product that we currently have in Europe, with CallAlert, that's been really well received by the physicians and by our laboratory partners. And then paired is again with the new biomarkers that we licensed, the mRNA biomarkers from the Canadian University, that have shown incredible performance of picking up colorectal cancer at a very early stage, or even being able to identify precancerous lesions. So I think the potential is very significant, and we're really excited to hopefully continue to work with all of you and give you updates in the future as we continue to execute.
Fantastic. We look forward to that. Thank you to the investors who participated on today's call. We, of course, will keep you posted on the company's progress going forward. To Guido and Bill, terrific presentation, compelling investment in the company. We look forward to you guys continuing to be successful going forward as well. And with that, everyone have a great weekend, one day early.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.